Let us have a moment of silence for Pigeon Man, the second greatest depiction of pigeon love since Home Alone 2. Well, episode 4 of The Walking Dead, DARYL DIXON has arrived with tons of zombies and a surprisingly short lineup to visit the Eiffel Tower. So come with me as we take a deep dive into the episode and stick around till the end where we do some trailer sleuthing to see just what might be in store in the weeks ahead. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe so I can retire and start my own pigeon farm. The title of this episode is La Dame de Fer, which translates to the Iron Lady, and is the nickname of the Eiffel Tower, something which is featured prominently in the episode. But before we get there, we have this super odd intro, which has to be some sort of flash forward, I think. I mean, it's possible it could be some type of dream, since the next scene after this is Daryl regaining consciousness from falling through that roof. But let's entertain the idea it's a flash forward. The first thing we'll notice is that Daryl and Laurent have somehow split up, and when Daryl sees him about to be eaten by a group of zombies, he's amazed when they simply walk past him. While the writers will have you believe his praying is what saved him, I tend to think he has some sort of immunity that makes him safe from the walkers. Remember, his mother turned into a zombie while giving birth, so it's possible some sort of antibodies or biological resistance was created, which offers him protection. Whether or not Daryl will now believe Laurent is the second coming remains to be seen, but hey, if I saw that, I'd definitely think something about Laurent is different. Laurent, however, walks away from Daryl. This pretty much goes against how the writers have been building his character, this nice, empathetic boy. Now, you could argue Laurent still holds a grudge against Daryl for leaving him behind in Paris, but I think there's something more here. When your life's on the line, you tend to put these grudges aside, so I can't help but think something really bad happens between the two after they leave Paris. Not to mention, there's the question of how they got split up in the first place. Or we can throw all those theories out, and this was all in Daryl's head when he fell through that roof. Perhaps it's a manifestation of his doubt about whether or not Laurent is truly special. The story then picks up with Daryl plummeting through the roof from the end of episode 3. He lands in some sort of sewer or canal where he must fight off the worst of all zombies, prune zombies. Daryl survives and finds himself back again on the streets of Paris. I found it really interesting, these shots of Daryl taking in a cello player and a couple enjoying breakfast while there is zombies puttering below. It just goes to show you that no matter how bad things are, life goes on. Back at the Union of Hope's Paris base, Genet interrogates Sonia, the woman Laurent comforted last episode. Like Daryl, Genet doesn't believe Laurent is this child destined to save humanity, rather that this is all a foolish tall tale to give desperate people hope. Genet calls this false hope a disease and orders Caudron, who is already looking for Daryl, to pick up Laurent as well. Now, she never says what she'll do with Laurent, but it doesn't sound so good when she says he must be, quote, rooted out, and if the scene couldn't get any creepier, she soothes one of the babies. In her mind, Genet doesn't think of herself as this evil woman. She sees herself as a protector, and part of that protection is shielding people from false hope. Cool zombie Mona Lisa graffiti as Daryl finds help from the Pigeon Man, who knows the way to Isabel's apartment. His love for the pigeons is too much and ends up getting himself killed, but Daryl is sure to make quick work of these pigeon-hating baddies. As Genet's soldiers stormed the Union's base last episode, Daryl told Isabel to wait for him at her apartment, a place they visited briefly to get those sweet drugs. In the fray, Laurent was lost, and he doesn't really know Paris that well, so the two surmise that he's made his way to the Eiffel Tower. That's the place he dreamed of visiting and held a special place in his mother's heart. Quinn seems pretty down in the dumps. Last episode, he said that he was Laurent's father, but I'm finding this very unconvincing. When he hears that Laurent's life could be in danger, he doesn't seem to care at all. In fact, the only reason he wants Laurent is to gain leverage so he can have Isabel. In Isabel's flashback, he knew Lily was pregnant and still wanted to leave her, something you'd probably not want to do if you knew it was your child. All of this Laurent stuff seems to be a ploy to get at Isabel, something I think Anna, Quinn's current lover, picks up on. I think this is part of why she ultimately lets Laurent go with Daryl even after she was told to keep him there. At the base of the Eiffel Tower, Laurent takes in the majesty of what was once one of the world's most iconic buildings. I love how there's this huge barricade around it, suggesting there may have been some big battle here. Whether to protect people or this structure itself is unknown. Last episode, we learned that a military copter crashed into it, hence the destroyed top. Later, Laurent will tell Anna that he will one day see it rebuilt to its former glory. But before that day can come, we have hordes of zombies pour out and attack, with Daryl and Isabel doing their best to protect Laurent before he's scooped up by a bunch of Quinn's men. Now, I thought it a bit weird that this zombie lunges and attacks Laurent. In the intro, if we do take it to be a flash forward, we saw how the zombies ignored him. So does it mean that this moment calls into question that Laurent is somehow immune? It could mean either A, something happens to Laurent between now and that moment we saw at the beginning, something which grants him immunity, or B, this was simply an oversight by the writers who wanted to add a little excitement in the scene. But again, toss this out if the beginning wasn't a flash forward. Daryl and Isabelle interrogate one of the men who tried to capture Laurent, a man by the name of Armand, a name which means soldier. It doesn't take long for Isabelle to find out he's one of Quinn's men, but Armand isn't that cooperative. This is when Daryl tells a morbid story of a kid named Jimmy having to kill a piglet, the moral being that sometimes we do things we think won't cause pain, only end up causing more in the long run. Isabelle will later ask Daryl if this kid was actually him. He says it isn't, but I don't buy it. It's a pretty elaborate tale to make up on the spot, and both Jimmy and Daryl share similarities, like having a brother, an alcoholic and abusive father, and the likelihood that Daryl was picked on for being weak. Remember that it was his brother Merle that raised him to be tough. Daryl ends up stabbing this dude multiple times, and I have no idea how he was able to walk around after that. This is enough pain for Armand to tell them of a secret entrance into Quinn's club. The plan is to create a distraction at the front entrance while Daryl sneaks in the back and rescues Laurent. Meanwhile, Quinn negotiates with Janae. In exchange for Daryl, she'll give him Monet's famous painting of a Japanese footbridge. But when Janae asks him if he has the kid, Quinn lies. That's because he needs the kid in order to get what he really wants, Isabelle. Anna also feels slighted because she was the one who told Quinn that Laurent would likely be at the Eiffel Tower, and they could trade him to Janae for a reward. I'm sure this greatly contributed to Anna's decision to let Daryl and Laurent go. Never piss off a French woman. There's also this cute little side story featuring Sylvie and her budding love affair with Emile. By the end of the episode, she has chosen to stay behind with him, and he faces a serious injury sustained while attacking the club. With the help of Armand, who later tries to flee but breaks his leg and Daryl leaves him to die, hilarious, Daryl makes it to Laurent. Anna lets them go, but there's one more person standing in their way. Daryl must battle Quinn if they're going to get out. The two duke it out, and Daryl ends up victorious. Now, Daryl could have killed Quinn here, but doesn't. Perhaps he doesn't want to scar Laurent by killing his alleged father in front of him. But I don't think this is the last we'll see of Quinn. Isabelle says in order to get Laurent past Janae's men, who have now started to block off the city, they'll need a man with influence. Thus, she decides to stay back with Quinn. Just how she plans on using him while Daryl and Laurent leave via boat isn't clear, but as we'll get into my trailer sleuthing section, we'll see some very interesting developments. As Daryl and Laurent boat down the Seine, Isabelle arrives back at the club to join a roughed-up Quinn. He's not going to be too happy when he finds out she wants to help the man who beat him up and the boy who escaped, but Isabelle says Quinn will do anything for her. Further down the river, we see a replica of the Statue of Liberty. This is an actual replica you can visit in Paris and is 1/4 the size of the one in New York. It was given to Paris as a gift by the American community to commemorate the centennial of the French Revolution. No doubt this is a symbol of home, freedom, and hope for Daryl. Now we get into our trailer sleuthing section where we theorize what might happen in the weeks ahead. And we have another week of not knowing what happened to Daryl on that tanker. But just a reminder, we will get some sort of flashback to how Daryl got there and ended up exploding the research facility on board. Daryl and Laurent continue down the river where Daryl asks about the nest from Aslan, the boat operator. He says it's a special place, a home for the soul. Meanwhile, Isabelle's in this large mansion surrounded by Quinn's men. Quinn wants to know how long it'll be before she'll be able to see him differently, but the trailer wants us to believe she's preparing to kill him. Remember, she said she would only try to escape once she knew Laurent was safe. Aslan, the boat operator, tells Daryl to get the boy to the nest, suggesting something bad has happened to him. With shots of Daryl and Laurent on land, it appears something either happens to their boat or the way up north can't be reached by water. I've been really curious about this shot of Laurent and Isabelle, where Isabelle is seen wearing fancy jewelry. Well, it looks from this shot that Isabelle and Quinn are at some sort of fancy event, a fancy event run by or featuring Janae. With the next shot being of a tranked zombie, I wonder if Janae is showing off the latest developments of her scientific experiments. And the final episode episodes will undoubtedly highlight the deeper connection made between Daryl and Laurent. Daryl will end up giving him his knife, and the two share a deep embrace after something very tragic has happened. Honestly, I don't know how they're going to tie all this stuff up in 2 more episodes. IMDb is saying the first season is only 6 eps, which means there's a lot of plot to get to. But what are you thinking of The Walking Dead DARYL DIXON so far? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, please make sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.